In traditional behavioral science, human action is often studied by isolating it into separate variables. We test for motivation, measure personality traits, and assess individual coping mechanisms. But treating behavior as a standalone, internal feature fails to explain why people exhibit different competencies across different settings. A student who struggles to manage time in a lecture hall might successfully coordinate complex logistics at a full-time job. When we analyze behavior strictly as an internal characteristic, the resulting explanations are often incomplete. This approach tends towards deterministic conclusions, suggesting that a person's actions are the inevitable result of inherent flaws. That model is limited because it ignores the actual conditions of life, the cultural expectations, institutional rules, and family obligations that function as environmental variables. Individual traits are insufficient for predicting behavior if we don't account for the overlapping systems that surround the person. The Ecological Identity Model, or EIM, is a framework developed by psychologist Peterson to address this gap. EIM proposes that behavior is shaped by what an environment communicates about a person's identity, belonging, and safety, rather than its physical features alone. This model connects a person's experience to the specific relationships, cultural norms, and policies that organize their choices. While an individual-only model looks inward for mechanical explanations of behavior, the EIM views the person as a connected node embedded within multiple overlapping systems. Within this framework, behavior is not a fixed trait. It is a continuous process of identity regulation negotiated across these systems. To see how this works, consider Elena, a first-generation college student. During her first semester, she begins missing classes and withdrawing from campus life. An institutional assessment might view her behavior as an individual deficit, attributing her absences to a lack of motivation or poor time management. However, Elena is actually navigating 3 distinct environments: her family, her workplace, and the college. This is stage 1 of the EIM sequence, Ecological Conditions. We map the concurrent systems that provide the resources and constraints organizing her daily life. Judging her academic performance without accounting for the competing demands of her job and family leads to a flawed interpretation of her actions. Stage 2 is Identity Appraisal. This is the process of interpreting what each environment communicates about who she is and where she belongs. While some campus interactions might produce identity uncertainty, Elena finds a different message in a first-generation student organization. Creates identity resonance, an environment where her responsibilities and goals are recognized without being treated as deficient. This leads to stage 3, regulatory signals. Elena's feelings of loneliness in certain college settings are not proof of a social deficit. These signals indicate that relational security, the sense of dependable, safe connection, is absent within that specific institutional environment. In stage 4, we examine cost and cross-pressure. Personal agency exists, but it operates under strict environmental conditions. Elena's systems pull her in opposing directions. Family needs financial support, her job requires hours, and college demands that same time. This is cross-pressure, systems demanding incompatible behaviors. She must weigh the perceived ecological cost. Reducing work threatens survival. Reducing family threatens her belonging. When ecological costs are high, prioritizing school over work may be structurally unviable. In this context, standard advice on time management is ineffective. Stage 5 is identity calibration. This is how a person adjusts their behavior or shifts their identity in response to ecological feedback and costs. If Elena considers leaving college, she is calibrating her life to resolve the unbearable cross-pressure between her job and her coursework. She is adapting to the structure of the choices available to her. Identity calibration is not inherently healthy or unhealthy. Its value depends on whether the adjustment supports integrity or if it requires chronic suppression. What an individual lens sees as academic self-sabotage, EIM recognizes as a rational strategy to preserve family survival in a rigid environment. The final phase is stage 6, ecological feedback. A person's calibrated response changes how the environment reacts, which in turn alters the next set of choices available to them. This 6-stage sequence reveals how a person and their environment influence each other in a recurring cycle. The EIM is an ongoing process of regulation, not a linear path toward a fixed end state. This framework shifts our core question. We move from asking what is wrong with the person to asking how that person is calibrating to the cross pressures of their environment. Using EIM requires an ethical commitment to avoid deficit framing. Communities and identities should be viewed as sources of agency and knowledge, not just collections of risk factors. We must also attend to power. Institutional systems often have the authority to impose costs and dictate what is considered normal behavior. Acknowledging ecological influence does not erase individual accountability. Instead, it allows for accountability to occur within the bounds of what is realistically possible. Effective intervention requires redesigning institutional conditions to expand realistic choices, rather than demanding an individual succeed in an unsupported environment. The goal is to move beyond individual-only explanations and address both the person and the system surrounding them.